Ladies and gentlemen, something is happening in America right now that the media just cannot spin, cannot bury, and cannot run from anymore. The cracks that they told you were isolated, they have blown wide open, and what's pouring out, this is a level of chaos that's so obvious, so explosive, so undeniably real. I mean, even the loudest Democrats have suddenly gone silent. Look, Minnesota, they thought that they could hide a $1 billion migrant fraud network. Think about that. They thought that the whistleblowers would stay quiet. They thought that the receipts would never surface, but now the entire operation's unraveling in real time, and it's leading straight into a national crisis that no one can ignore. Because as Minnesota collapses under its own corruption, New York City is now admitting a $12 billion migrant crisis that's gutting police budgets, draining schools, and triggering the largest urban meltdown in decades. And at the exact same moment, Texas law enforcement is overwhelmed by a surge of fake families, fake IDs, fake sponsorships, an entire shadow system that's built to exploit every loophole left behind the Biden's disastrous years in office. And you want to know the worst part? We're now learning that 85,000 migrant children vanished into the system. There's no tracking, no records, no accountability. 85,000 migrant children disappeared. Now, this is no longer a local story. This is a national pattern, a national breakdown, and a national wake-up call. So tonight, we're pulling back every thread. I'm opening the curtain for you guys. Hit the like button and subscribe. I want to start where this entire national unraveling truly began. Minnesota. The state Democrats insisted was this model for diversity and refuge resettlement and nonprofit-led humanitarian aid. Okay, sounds all good, right? Instead, what we now know, thanks to whistleblowers, investigators, former employees of the state, and court testimony, is that Minnesota became the epicenter of the largest welfare fraud scheme in American history. A $1 billion network of shell nonprofits, fake meal sites, political fixers, and foreign-connected operators that were siphoning federal money that was meant to feed children, guys, to feed children into luxury cars. They spent this money on private jets, private properties, cash transfers, offshore accounts. And the craziest part, this wasn't some tiny oversight. This wasn't like one rogue nonprofit. This was a fully operational ecosystem. This was a pipeline that was built through NGOs that were treated like sacred cows, never questioned, never audited, never challenged. The Feeding Our Future scandal was just the beginning, though. As the FBI dug deeper, more and more networks popped up, more nonprofits emerged, more community leaders were exposed. Wow, this thing went really deep. So what prosecutors first thought was a $250 million scheme quickly ballooned past $500 million. And now analysts are saying that the real number may exceed $1 billion. Now, Minnesota didn't just mismanage funds. That would be making it seem like there was some innocence here. Minnesota imported a third world corruption model and embedded it inside of American systems. This is the origin point. This is where the cracks first showed. And now we move to the question that changes everything. And so, because here's where the temperature spikes, the whistleblowers. These aren't bloggers. These aren't political activists. These are state employees, investigators, auditors, and compliance officers who were on the inside. And their testimonies are rather chilling. Multiple whistleblowers are now saying that they raised concerns for years. Fraud alarms, suspicious invoices, meal sites serving thousands of kids out of abandoned offices, mind you. And every time they tried to sound the alarm, they were shut down. They were silenced. They were scolded by top Democrat leadership. Reports are now showing that staff warned Governor Tim Walz's administration about these fraudulent networks as early as 2018, guys. How long ago was that? Was that 5 years, 6? That's like 7 years ago, right? And yet, not only was nothing done, but employees were pressured to stop disrupting relationships with these nonprofits. Now, one whistleblower even said that the governor's own chief of staff yelled at them for questioning community partners that were tied to Democrat power structures. Let that sink in, okay? The very people responsible for oversight, they were told to back off, to stop asking questions, to stop looking so closely at the exact organizations now charged with stealing hundreds of millions of dollars per year, okay? And so if state leaders in Minnesota knew, then what about the federal agencies that are controlling the border, immigration intake and refugee replacement? You see what I'm saying here? Because while Minnesota was drowning in financial fraud, Washington was losing something far worse. Now, before we move on to what federal agencies failed to do again, let me say something that's been weighing a lot on Americans lately, because when you hear stories like this, whistleblowers being silenced, billions stolen, kids unaccounted for, there's a moment moment where people step back and they say, you know, if the system can't protect itself, how's it going to protect me? And honestly, every generation reaches a moment where they're forced to take a stand for their finances, a stand for their family, a stand for their own future. And for millions of Americans, that moment to take a stand is right now. And this is why I partnered with Noble Gold Investments, because while government systems break down, real assets don't lie. They help people secure part of their IRA or 401k with physical gold and silver, not promises, not IOUs, real protection, real control. And once people understand how this works, they all say the same thing. Yeah, that just makes sense, because deep down, everyone knows the truth. You cannot outsource your financial safety. And this is why most people see what's happening today and they're calling the phone number at the bottom of your screen, 877-646-5347, or they're visiting RonYatesGold.com. There's a link down below to get their free wealth protection kit. The world might be uncertain, but your stand doesn't have to be. And this is where the entire story breaks out of Minnesota and it explodes onto the national stage, because while one state was drowning in a billion-dollar fraud network, the federal government under Joe Biden was losing children. Not a dozen, not a few hundred, 85,000 migrant children gone, vanished, unaccounted for, absorbed into God knows what networks. Under Biden, Homeland Security, HHS, and the Office of Refugee Resettlement placed minors with these sponsors who were never vetted, never checked, never followed up with. Investigators are now saying that many children were handed directly to traffickers, labor networks, and criminal rings operating under the radar. I mean, it gets nasty, guys. These kids weren't just misplaced. They were lost inside the very ecosystem of NGOs, shell nonprofits, and border intermediaries that were already stealing billions of dollars. And so Biden's agencies, they turned this border into a conveyor belt, shuffling children into the country faster than they could process them, without oversight, without documentation, without responsibility. This is what happens when ideology replaces governance, when compassion becomes a cover for chaos, when the system is so overwhelmed and so politically connected and protected that losing 85,000 kids suddenly becomes a footnote instead of a national emergency. The nominal all-time high of silver is toast, and this current bull market is so different than the 1980 spectacle. In fact, this 2025 surge, this is the sound of industrial warfare escalating, folks. In fact, each of the three major silver bull markets over the past 54 years have begun when this chart tops, and that's exactly what it looks like today. Silver is also reacting to the AI robot strain. Every single advanced technology crucial to the US versus China's supremacy race, from the fastest servers to the sensors in every humanoid robot, is built on silver. And it's not just the best conductor, it's the irreplaceable catalyst for the future economy. I'm telling you all of this today because the sponsor of today's video is tied to the do or die race between China and the United States, which is sweeping the world, and it is called Humanoid Global Holdings, listed on the OTC under ticker symbol RBOHF, because humanoid robots could turn out to be, in my opinion, the most transformative in the world's history. Shares of Humanoid Global Holdings, ticker symbol RBOHF, they're available through Interactive Brokers, Schwab, Fidelity, E-Trade, and others. We're not just early, we're standing at the 0-mile marker of the most profound productivity shift in human history, I believe. This technology is demonstrating breathtaking exponential progress. This earliness is precisely what makes it an unstoppable, unmissable mega event investment theme as I see it. The ultimate proof of the market's infancy lies in the current state of technology adoption, limited real-world deployment. As of late 2025, humanoid robots are primarily in the pilot testing phase within structured environments like automotive factories. Humanoid robots are projected to account for a mere 0.2% of the total robot market scale. Humanoids are the quintessential early-stage investment, and to capitalize on this window of opportunity, and our sponsor, Humanoid Global Holdings, ticker symbol RBOHF, is one of the only publicly traded companies that is a pure play focused on this sector. Each of us gets a few chances in life to be at the inception moments of transformative industries, part of the birth of ground floor opportunities with global influence that will result in trillions of dollars of wealth created. Humanoid Global Holdings on the OTC exchange under ticker symbol RBOHF has publicly committed to or closed indirect strategic investments in the following 5 companies representing key parts of the emerging humanoid robotics ecosystem. Now again, these startups are private, so there's no other way to gain exposure to them for the retail investor unless it is through Humanoid Global Holdings. So one, you've got Agility Robotics. developer of the bipedal humanoid robot Digit. Shareholders of Humanoid Global are invested in Agility right alongside Amazon Industrial Innovation Fund and NVIDIA. So number 2, you've got Apptronic, developer of the general purpose humanoid robot Apollo. Shareholders of Humanoid Global are invested in Apptronic right alongside Google and Mercedes-Benz. Number 3, you've got RideScan, developer of an AI-powered safety and performance platform for autonomous robots. Number 4, you've got How2 Robot. This is a global marketplace that connects businesses looking for automation with robotics solution suppliers. Number 5, Formic. This is a company offering robotics as a service, or RaaS, to small and mid-sized manufacturers. This focuses on the deployment and financial model RaaS that lowers the barrier to entry for automation. Shareholders of Humanoid Global are invested in Formic alongside Lux Capital and Mitsubishi HC Capital America. The level of commitment the People's Republic of China is dedicating to humanoid robotics is nothing short of an all-out, centrally planned, national strategic imperative from everything that I've been able to gather and assess on this subject. China has set non-negotiable short-term deadlines. In parallel, the United States is pursuing a more decentralized approach through private capital, venture funding, and large technology companies. This is the definition of early, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. So imagine robots working 20 hours a day, 350 days a year, unaffected by fatigue or illness. This offers up to 4 times the labor productivity of a human worker. Dominance in humanoid robotics means control over the next generation of automation for the defense industrial base. Now, the core investment thesis behind humanoids rests on their ability to unlock massive, untapped productivity gains across every sector of the global economy. Do your homework on Humanoid Global Holdings, one of the only publicly traded humanoid companies out there this early. And so if Minnesota was the financial scandal, this is the moral scandal. And together they form this pattern that is just way too big to dismiss, because when you step back and you connect the dots, the picture becomes unmistakable. It's not Minnesota over here, New York over there, Texas over there. No, the same fingerprints keep showing up, guys. The same loopholes, the same nonprofit networks, the same community organizations receiving federal money without real oversight. I mean, just look at Minnesota, right? Shell, nonprofits, faking meal programs. Look at the missing migrant kids, right? Placed with unvetted sponsors through NGO pipelines. Look at the border crisis in Texas. Fake families, fake IDs, fake guardianships, all facilitated by intermediaries who operate beyond accountability. And so this is the same model repeating across the entire country. This is a model that's built on federal dollars, zero accountability, nonprofits shielded by political alliances, cultural networks exploiting American trust, and leaders who refuse to enforce oversight out of fear of being called racist. This isn't chaos by accident. This is a systemic failure produced by the exact same policies, the same blind spots, and the same political incentives.
Some fraudsters are still benefiting from their crimes even after being charged and convicted.
From this 5-bed, 4.5 bath in Washington County to $1 million house in Plymouth, complete with an indoor basketball court. My name is Eric Rasmussen. I'm a reporter with KSTP. Do you know if the government is trying to take this house? Each house owned by people convicted of fraud. Feeding Our Future, $250 million meant to help kids in need. But long after prosecutors filed paperwork to seize properties purchased with stolen taxpayer dollars, neighbors told 5 Investigates that still has not happened. Take former Safari restaurant owner Salim Saeed.
5 guilty verdicts now.
A jury convicted him and Feeding Our Future founder Amy Bach nearly 9 months ago. But we found Saeed and his wife are still the official owners of this $1.1 million house in Plymouth.
Great.
Fraud money funded their $952,000 down payment in 2021. And county records show they racked up more than $50,000 in delinquent property taxes. Note I left, but a week later we did see someone leaving. Have to wait for Salim Saeed to be sentenced before they can take the property.
Oh, really?
But that doesn't explain this one. Records show the owner of this house in Willerny is Jonathan Ross, the husband of Sharon Ross.
We want to keep that program going.
The former director of House of Refuge Twin Cities was sentenced to prison in February.
And I'll tell you what, in my time on this, I'd never seen this before. People driving by my house and using the R word in front of people. Yet to see an elected official, a Republican elected official, say, you're right, that's shameful. Donald Trump has done. He's normalized this type of hateful behavior and this type of language. Well, maybe it's time for us to be a little meaner. And when it's adult like Donald Trump, you bully the
him back. What we should demonize is people like Elon Musk.
Twin Cities for its next immigration crackdown. City officials say as many as 100 federal agents are expected to be deployed in both Minneapolis and St. Paul in the coming days. As this new ICE effort will focus on Somalis that are here illegally with final deportation orders.
They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you, okay? Somebody would say, oh, that's not political.
Well, his police chief is also saying...
I wouldn't be proud to have the largest Somalian. Look at their nation. Look how bad their nation is. It's not even a nation. It's just people walking around killing each other. Look, these Somalians have taken billions of dollars out of our country. They've taken billions and billions of dollars. They have a representative, Ilhan, Omar, who they say married her brother.
Wow.
That's a fraud. She tries to deny it now, but you can't really deny it because it just happened. She shouldn't be allowed to be a congresswoman, and she should be thrown the of our country.
That's crazy.
And most of those people, they have destroyed Minnesota, okay? Minnesota, you have an incompetent governor. You have a crooked governor. He's crooked. It's a hellhole right now. And the Somalians should be out of here. They've destroyed our country. Complain, complain, complain. You have her. She's always talking about the Constitution provides me with... Go back to your own country and figure out your Constitution. All she does is complain about this country. Without this country, she would not be in very good shape. She probably wouldn't be alive right now. So Somalia is considered by many to be the worst country on earth. I don't know. I haven't been there. I won't be there anytime soon. I hope. But what Somalia, what the Somalian people have done to Minnesota is not even believable. It's not even believable. And a lot of it starts with the governor. It starts with Barack Hussein Obama. Because that's when people started coming in. And you have to have people come in that are going to love our country, cherish our country. They want to kiss our country goodnight.
Wow.
They talk about our country. We want them to pray for our country. And this is not the people living in Minnesota. And she's a disaster. She should not be, and her friends shouldn't be allowed. Frankly, they shouldn't even be allowed to be Congress people.
And I am not someone to be intimidated, and we are not going to be scapegoated. We are here to stay.
It is not just Minnesota, although there will be more ICE raids happening there per the administration. But we also now have a new travel ban.
Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. I'm in our country, I'll be honest with you. Okay? Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care.
President Trump again takes aim at the Somali community as the flurry of federal investigations focused on Minnesota is expanding.
I mean, I have no worry. I don't really take away my citizenship and deport me, but I don't even know why that's red. I'm not the 8-year-old who escaped war anymore. I'm grown. My kids are grown. I can go live wherever I want.
And so what Minnesota exposed is not a local scandal. This is a national architecture, one that moves money, it moves people and power into the shadows while taxpayers are footing the bill and children disappear into the cracks. And so if you think that the consequences are limited to Minnesota or Washington, just look at what's happening in New York City today. So now let's move to New York City, where the consequences of this nationwide migrant pipeline are no longer theoretical. They're financial, they're catastrophic, and they're unavoidable. New York officials just admitted that the migrant crisis will cost the city over $12 billion, forcing emergency cuts to police departments like they need any more cuts, fire services, school programs, libraries, sanitation, and even community centers. Now, think about that, guys. You got a city of over 8 million people forced to cannibalize essential services, not because tax revenue collapsed, not because the population shrank, but because the migrant infrastructure built during the Biden years is draining the budget faster than they can refill it. And so they're turning schools into migrant shelters. They're turning these parks into processing centers, community gyms into temporary housing. And every step of the way, social workers and police are overwhelmed. The teachers are stretching to their breaking points, and the residents are being told, oh, just be patient while their neighborhoods are transforming overnight. This isn't compassion. This is collapse. New York promised the world that they were a sanctuary, but a sanctuary without limits becomes a sinkhole, and now the ground is giving way beneath them. And so the Minnesota scandal revealed that the fraud fraud behind the scenes is taking place. New York shows us the cost when the fraud becomes the foundation of policy. But if you really want to see how deep the dysfunction really goes, you got to look south, because Texas is now dealing with a crisis unlike anything we've ever seen before. So Texas law enforcement has been sounding the alarm for months, but now the data is undeniable. We are witnessing the largest surge of fake families, fake IDs, and fraudulent sponsorships ever recorded at the southern border, okay? And so these aren't some amateur operations. These are sophisticated networks complete with forged birth certificates, rehearsed family stories, matching fake documents, and coordinated trafficking pipelines that are designed to exploit every loophole that was left behind from the Biden years. And so the CBP agents report adults arriving with children that they've never met. DNA tests reveal there's no biological relation. Migrants are coached to claim asylum family exemptions. Kids are being recycled. Yes, recycled to help unrelated adults gain entry faster. Meanwhile, you got state troopers uncovering sprawling counterfeit rings, producing IDs, green cards, work papers, and social security documents at every factory level. I mean, this is a conveyor belt. This is a well-oiled machine that they've set up here. So here's the connection nobody in the mainstream media wants to acknowledge. The same structure of nonprofit sponsors, community intermediaries, political pressure that protected Minnesota's fraudsters is now protecting border fraudsters. Texas isn't dealing with random criminals. Texas is dealing with a system, one that was built and incentivized during Biden's presidency and now being exposed under President Trump's restoration of enforcement. So Minnesota exposed the money pipeline. Texas is exposing the human pipeline, and the pattern just keeps getting darker and darker from here. And so let's talk about this engine that's behind all of this, the nonprofit industrial complex. This is the shadow ecosystem that politicians elevate as untouchable, unimpeachable, community-led organizations, which in reality, they have become the clearinghouse for fraud, trafficking, and government exploitation across the entire country. Minnesota exposed how easy it was for shell nonprofits to file fake invoices, fake contracts, and fake meal counts, and then walk away with hundreds of millions of dollars. But the same operational model wasn't limited to one state. During the Biden administration, thousands of new nonprofits and NGO partners, they were approved for migrant handling, resettlement, shelter operations, and federal reimbursements with very little vetting, or in many cases, there was no vetting, zero auditing, and very few consequences when red flags were emerged. Pandemic era waivers made it worse. Oversight was reduced. Verification requirements were completely removed. Billions began flowing into systems built on the honor code. Yeah, you trust people with that kind of money? I don't think so. Systems being run by people who had every incentive to cheat it. And now the federal inspector general warns that these nonprofits may have collectively misused billions in COVID relief money, migrant aid, emergency housing funds, child care subsidies, and refugee services. This isn't clarity. This is an industry, guys, engineered to absorb taxpayer dollars while providing cover for insiders and criminal networks. Minnesota was simply the first domino, and the rest are starting to fall in every major blue city. And so when you map this crisis, the hotspots are not random. They're the same cities with the same political leadership, the same nonprofit empires, the same sanctuary policies, the same catastrophic outcomes. Minneapolis, New York City, Houston, El Paso, San Antonio. These places are now the epicenters of government benefit fraud, untracked migrant children, overwhelmed school systems, skyrocketing service costs, budget collapses, crime networks exploiting migrant flow, and nonprofits functioning as political machines rather than humanitarian organizations. I mean, look at the pattern, guys. Minneapolis let fraudulent NGOs distribute millions of dollars with zero oversight. New York opened its doors wide open, then gutted the police budgets, school funding, social services to keep up with migrant housing demands. Texas border cities became these intake zones designed and dominated by groups who claim to be coordinators, but who actually serve as these intermediaries for exploitation and document manipulation. And so everywhere the same incentives exist, the same outcomes appear: missing children, financial ruin, overwhelmed systems, and leaders who either ignored the warnings or were actively suppressing them. I'm not sure. Now, this is not geography. This is governance. This is policy. This is what happens when ideology replaces accountability, and the taxpayers, they're the ones that are holding the bill and paying the price. Meanwhile, the crisis continues to spread. So now we need to talk about the people who were never asked, okay? Never informed, never warned the American taxpayer. The families who are watching their neighborhoods change overnight. overnight while politicians are lecturing them about compassion from behind gated security and taxpayer-funded offices. In Minnesota, the Feeding Our Future scandal wasn't just a financial crime. The Feeding Our Future scandal was a slap in the face to every parent struggling to afford groceries while fraudsters pocketed money that was meant to feed children. Taxpayers didn't just lose billions of dollars, they lost trust. And so in New York City, families are watching schools lose resources because classrooms are being repurposed for migrant housing. Police precincts are understaffed because billions have already been rerouted to emergency migrant services. Libraries and community centers are cutting hours. In Texas, parents fear for their children's safety. These traffickers are exploiting these loopholes that allow adults to cross with unrelated children. Crime networks infiltrate border cities, and state resources are stretched beyond capacity. I mean, this clearly is not helping communities. This is draining communities. It's forcing Americans to pay for a system that refuses to protect them. It refuses to prioritize them, and it for sure refuses to be honest with them. And so when the burden grows, the same politicians responsible for this mess, they still insist that everything's under control. But if everything's so under control, why is the president of the United States preparing a federal crackdown? And so here's where the story shifts, because today, Donald J. Trump is president of the United States again. And unlike the last administration, Trump isn't pretending that the crisis is imaginary or exaggerated. He's calling it exactly what it is. It's a system-wide breakdown created by fraud, incompetence, and intentional negligence during the Biden years. And so under President Trump's direction, federal agencies are now launching full-scale audits of every major NGO that received migrant funding from 2020 to 2024. DHS and ICE, they have been ordered to reopen trafficking investigations linked to missing migrant children. The DOJ is already building criminal cases against individuals and organizations that are tied to federal benefit fraud. And so at the border, Trump authorized expanded checkpoints, mandatory DNA verification for family units, enhanced ID screening, and immediate deportation authority for anyone caught using fraudulent documents. Trump can't undo the damage that Biden allowed, but he can expose it, prosecute it, and shut it down. And he's doing exactly that. Now, for years, Americans were told that this was compassion. Trump is showing the country what real accountability looks like. But as these crackdowns begin, a deeper truth is emerging, one that reveals the real danger behind everything we've discussed so far. So now we arrive at the truth that no one in the mainstream media dares to articulate. This is not a single crisis. It's not just fraud. It's not just missing kids. It's not just overwhelmed cities. This is a hybrid crisis, a merger of government corruption, NGO exploitation, border chaos, financial chaos, and demographic pressure all working together to break the system from the inside out. So this Minnesota scandal showed us the financial rot, billions stolen through fake nonprofits. The 85,000 missing migrant children revealed the moral rot, a federal system unable or unwilling to protect the most vulnerable people. New York exposed the urban rot, a city forced to cannibalize itself to keep up with a crisis it invited. Texas exposed the legal rot, fake families, fake documents, fake pathways into America, all incentivized by loopholes from the Biden years. And together they formed the largest coordinated failure of modern immigration management in the United States history. This is no longer accidental. This is no longer incompetence. This is clearly structural. It's embedded. This is the result of years of political cowardice, ideological delusion, and deliberate negligence. And now, under President Trump, every piece, every buried file, every fraudulent dollar is being dragged into the sunlight. But if America doesn't wake up now, the next stage of this crisis will make everything seem so much worse than it is. So here's a final warning, guys. Minnesota was not the disaster. Minnesota was the signal, the canary in the coal mine, so to speak, the early tremor before the nationwide earthquake. For years, the establishment told us the Minnesota scandal was isolated, a misunderstanding, a paperwork issue, a few bad actors. But now we know the truth. Minnesota was the blueprint for a system of exploitation replicated across every major sanctuary city in America. It started with fake nonprofits. It expanded through border loopholes. It metastasized through unvetted sponsorships, and it exploded under Biden's policies that removed oversight, rewarded chaos, and opened every door that should have been locked. And so now the cracks are everywhere. New York City collapsing financially, Texas overwhelmed with fraudulent families and illegal networks, tens of thousands of migrant children missing, swallowed by a system that should have been protecting them. And the American people, they were never told the truth. Until now, President Trump's audits, investigations, and border reforms are exposing what insiders spent years covering up. But exposure exposure is not enough. America must decide whether it wants to repair the system or watch it collapse. Because if Minnesota was the beginning, what's coming next could reshape the entire nation. Hit the like button, subscribe, share this video. We'll see you next time.